Let's do it. Welcome to season 2 of Fresh Off the Boat. My name is Arjun Seth. I'm the founder director of Edbrand and collegefair.live. It's so delighted to have Divya Kamakar with us today. Divya, I've known you since 2008 when you were all that energy that you also have today on the screen. Thinking of colleges and obviously aiming pretty much for the top. To tell me a little bit about, introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your journey, about what you were like a high school student thinking of applying back then.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me on this podcast and this series, Arjun. Like always, a pleasure to connect with you and talk to more students. So basically, in terms of who I am currently the CEO and co-founder of a women's healthcare startup called Pinky Promise. In short, what we're trying to do is fundamentally change how a woman's healthcare is conducted, take it to her phone, make sure she gets an instant high-quality diagnosis at the click of a button, link it to images, etc., and path labs at the back end, and fulfill the entire care journey for her. And we do this using some proprietary technology that we've built. So that's what I'm doing today. But the journey of getting here has been very interesting, and starts from my time at Yale. And I guess my time as a high school student before that. I was always extremely interested in biology and healthcare. So I remember when I met you, telling you that that's exactly what I wanted to study going into Yale. Like I wanted to study biology. That's why I went to Yale. And at Yale, I took a lot of classes in economics, in biology, and ended up doing the Global Healthcare Fellowship as well over there, which is like a selective program where around 20 students are chosen from a competitive pool every year, and you get to take classes, of course, at Yale, but also in the Yale Medical School and outside, which are relevant to global health and healthcare. And you get to do like a lot of research courses and take up to PhD level classes in that. So I actually learned a lot about reproductive healthcare there, and then worked a couple of years here and there, like in the government and public policy and strategy consulting, etc. Then when I did my MBA, and then I did this. So it's been a long journey, but a very interesting one.
That's fantastic. You really knew what resources were available, and or rather probably scanned them and sort of tweaked the way that you sort of experienced different aspects of a community life on campus. And thankfully, many of those things helped you sort of cement what you want to do in the future. Let's step back a little bit now. I think, and you also are currently an interviewer for universities. So I think it's interesting that you're now on the other side in some ways, on the admission side. When you meet students who were like you in 12th grade, having applied to colleges, what do you think they should keep in mind about this whole admissions and sometimes very challenging process for them, very stressful process for them?
Yeah, I think a couple of things. The first would actually just be to remember that it gets over at some point, right? And in a few months, after your essays are through, your test scores are through, everything is through, you get a good sense of what you're doing for the next 4 years, or at least where you will be in. And that's a fantastic adventure to be a part of. So look forward to that adventure, look forward to that destination that you're going to get to, and channelize that energy into the application process, especially when you feel like, oh man, like this is getting unbearable in terms of the hours and putting in, or like my 20th edit of my essay, which still doesn't seem to be perfect, etc. And I think that the second thing I would like to, maybe convey to people is that the journey is also really, really rewarding. The process of applying to colleges in the US allows you to actually get introspective, think about aspects of your life that you probably haven't thought about, right? And also think about what you want to do when you go to college. So you have the opportunity to be mindful about what you're doing today and be mindful and plan for what you're doing tomorrow. And that puts you at a very good place when you get into college, because talented children who are motivated, even if you don't get into what you think today is your top choice or your top preference, you will get into a great program, and then it's about what you make of it. And if you look at like people in the world, their success ratios are not dictated by the fact that they went to a particular university. It's often dictated by what they did there. And very often, if people don't end up going to like so-called dream colleges in their undergrad, they hustle and they end up getting to whatever they want to do afterwards. So always keep that big picture in mind and enjoy the process of introspection and mindfulness that this particular like application calls for. I feel like colleges in India don't have that, and it's so nice to have that when you're applying to colleges in the US.
It's so true that there is so much out there, not just the application process, but once you're sort of researching the various options, and even after you get in, identifying the final right fit college it's so enriching as an experience to realize that there are so many opportunities, resources, fields of study, concentrations, opportunities to even study abroad or study or all that kind of stuff. So if you were to explain the things that you did which really made your Yale experience unique, other than the organizations that you mentioned right in the introduction, what do you think the global health studies concentration or major or minor, I'm not sure what it was, but if you can tell us, and you're still working in that space, which is amazing. Touch upon that or any other resources, mentors that you feel were instrumental in taking you where you are today.
So a few things that I think were super instrumental. Now thinking about it now, like they were super instrumental to where I am now. I think the first one, like you mentioned, were definitely mentors. You get allotted mentors when you get into college. And very often what ends up happening is, of course, sometimes, this person's from the music department and you're trying to be pre-med, right? So there is no click there, but very often there is. Like there's a reason why certain mentors are allocated to you and certain people are allocated to you. So I walked into Yale clueless. Like it was my first time in the US when I went and joined as a student. I had never gone to the US before. Of course, the university has amazing support systems, but I think that I just grasped at whatever threads were available for me, right? And my mentor in biology was Professor Stephen Stearns, who actually ended up becoming like a grandfather figure for me. I ended up spending Thanksgiving at his place, like, very often every other Friday would go there for like a meeting or meeting someone interesting or a wine tasting or something like that. But he actually really helped me understand what was there in the world in terms of career opportunities. His wisdom and his experience really helped me kind of put things in perspective, and back for the long run, and also make benefit of the various faculty resources that are available at Yale, right? So because of him, I started doing research in my first year itself. I joined his lab, I joined some other labs, I started doing research. I learned really complicated data analysis, which I'm using in my startup today, right? To make our startup as like data centric as possible, to get like great user driven insights, to do all of these things. I think because of him, learned about various fellowships and scholarships that were available for students. So I went in thinking that I may not be able to have opportunities to study abroad and do these kind of things over summers because, okay, I'm on financial aid, but like maybe that's not like a, thing in Costa Rica or something like that may not be something that I could really afford. But then because of him and a network of other faculty mentors that were available, I was able to discover a lot of grants and fellowship opportunities, which allowed me to just do whatever I wanted over the different summers. And of course, the Global Health Fellowship is something that I came across in general, because people who are interested in healthcare and biology and who want to be doctors later on, etc., do apply for that. And so I did. But then what I did there again, what I did from that was again because of the kind of networks and relationships that I had by then built at Yale. So I actually ended up going to Tanzania, working on a Yale-funded project there, where we had to figure out why women of a certain background, like women who were actually drug users and sex workers, were not accessing the antiretroviral and drug rehabilitation treatments that were provided to them free of cost by a consortium of donors, including Yale. So Yale had spent many millions of dollars in this, and there were no outcomes really. So I ended up actually working in the ghettos and red light areas of Tanzania, interviewing women who were a part of this target group to create like the first ever report of gender and gendered experiences acting as deterrents to healthcare access in sub-Saharan Africa. And the recommendations of that report were actually scaled up across Tanzania, Russia, Mongolia, like so many other places. So essentially, these kind of opportunities you don't get anywhere. Like you don't get to be a published author twice when you're in undergrad. You don't get to like have lifelong relationships with your professors in undergrad that serve good today. Like they're my advisors even today. Like I'm able to call them up at any point of time. And you also just don't get these kind of like financial fellowships and perks and other benefits in terms of like being able to travel wherever you want and do whatever you want. If you're not like super mindful about it and you're not building the right relationships. So I think that these were some things that definitely helped me get to where I am today and take benefit of all the opportunities that were available at Yale. And the second thing is I feel like your friends and the people you meet at Yale and any other undergraduate university you go to, so like your dorm mates, your classmates, like they end up becoming phenomenal support systems for you as well. So a lot of advice that I've gotten in terms of like how to build my business and structure it, how to raise funds, how to recruit the right teams, all of this is from my own classmates who have either run businesses before me, who are either or like running it right now, or who are in like venture capital, right? So it's interesting how those relationships are now coming back to really benefit me. And we were just like really good friends at that point of time, right? So a lot of altruistic friendship really benefits me today. It's still super altruistic because we're just doing this because we care for each other, but it's also very beneficial.
So it's fantastic to know that you're still in touch with so many people in the community, the faculty, and your friends from Yale. So at Edbrand, we've also evolved over a period of time where we support student-led activities, mostly student-led clubs and societies from different parts of India, and also our own student-run organizations. We'd love to have you at a panel. There's so many topics you could talk about in life sciences, in global health, in social impact, entrepreneurship, and of course, life at a sort of a high-strung sort of Yale and then also an MBA. So it'll be fantastic to stay in touch and look forward to many more sessions with you. Take care. Bye.
Thank you so much, Arjun. It'll be my pleasure to come on any of these.